Everyone saying nothing has changed in the Middle East is lying to themselves. This week proved something important. Iran escalated tensions again, raising pressure across the region. Normally when that happens, analysts expect chaos. Fractured alliances, markets reacting violently, governments scrambling to respond. But something different happened. Instead of falling into disorder, the Gulf states moved in the opposite direction. They consolidated. Coordination appeared where fragmentation once existed. Governments aligned their messaging. Security cooperation increased. Diplomatic channels activated quickly. That's not normal behavior for a region that has historically been divided. And when a region that was once fragmented suddenly starts acting in coordination, it usually signals something deeper than a short-term reaction. It signals a transition in power. Call out skeptics. For years, the dominant narrative about the Middle East sounded like this. Iran controls the region. The Gulf states are fragmented. Saudi Arabia depends entirely on Western protection. That narrative shaped global commentary for decades. But take a step back and look at the current landscape. What do we actually see? A government in Tehran increasingly relying on escalation to project influence. And at the same time, a Saudi Arabia that appears more prepared, more financially powerful, and more strategically connected than at almost any point in modern history. That contrast matters, because the story people have been repeating for years may no longer reflect the reality on the ground. Frame the debate. Let's make one thing clear. This conversation is not about invasion scenarios. It's not about dramatic collapse narratives. It's about initiative. In any regional power structure, influence ultimately comes down to a few fundamental questions. Who controls escalation? Who stabilizes energy markets? Who deploys capital when crises hit? Who coordinates the security response when instability spreads? For decades, those answers were uncertain in the Middle East. But right now, the actor increasingly shaping those outcomes is not the revolutionary theocracy in Tehran, it's Riyadh. Attack the old narrative. For more than 40 years, Iran's regional strategy relied on a relatively consistent formula. Project power through proxies, destabilize rival governments, create pressure through asymmetric networks, control influence through chaos. That strategy worked, but only under one key condition. Your opponents must remain divided. Fragmented rivals are easier to manipulate. Multiple crises spread attention. And when neighboring states distrust each other more than they distrust you, leverage expands. But that strategy starts to break down the moment those rivals begin coordinating. And that's what we're seeing now. Saudi Arabia is increasingly leading a more unified Gulf security posture supported by several pillars. First, modernized defense systems designed to integrate across allied states. Second, long-standing strategic relationships with Western powers that still provide military coordination and technological support. Third, growing diplomatic and economic channels with China and other global powers, creating flexibility in international partnerships. Fourth, enormous sovereign wealth leverage capable of influencing markets, investments, and infrastructure across the region. Taken together, that's not weakness. That's multi-axis power. The big claim. Here's the uncomfortable truth that many analysts struggle to admit. Iran is ideological. Saudi Arabia is strategic. Ideology can mobilize people quickly. It creates intensity and commitment, but ideology also tends to burn hot and fast. Strategic power behaves differently. It builds slowly through investment, infrastructure, alliances, and institutions. One system prioritizes revolutionary momentum, the other prioritizes long-term positioning. History often shows that slow structural power eventually outlasts reactive power. Tie to 2026 prediction. In a previous analysis, I made a claim that triggered strong reactions. The argument was simple. Western dominance over Middle Eastern political dynamics is gradually declining, and Saudi Arabia is positioning itself to become the stabilizing axis of a new regional order. That idea made some people uncomfortable. But what happened this week reinforces that trajectory. When escalation pressure increased, Riyadh didn't panic. It positioned itself diplomatically, economically, strategically. That's what emerging power looks like. Escalation psychology. Escalation is often misunderstood. When states escalate tensions, it can look like strength, it can look like dominance. But escalation is often a signal of pressure, and pressure reveals structure. When tension rises, the region tends to align around the actor capable of providing stability. In the Middle East, that stability increasingly depends on four things: security coordination, investment capital, energy continuity, and diplomatic predictability. The actor capable of delivering those consistently becomes the center of gravity. And that actor today is not a revolutionary theocracy. It is a state investing hundreds of billions into infrastructure, technology, and economic diversification. A state building mega-cities. A state operating one of the largest sovereign wealth funds in the world, the polarizing punch. If Tehran continues escalating tensions while Saudi Arabia continues consolidating alliances, expanding economic influence, and modernizing its military capabilities, history may look back on this period as a critical turning point. Not because one side was invaded, not because one government suddenly collapsed, but because one strategy overreached. Escalation can sometimes unite opponents. And when that happens, the system that relied on chaos begins to lose its advantage. That is how geopolitical eras often end. Quietly at first, then all at once. You don't have to admire Saudi Arabia to recognize the scale of what is happening. You don't have to agree with its policies to see the trajectory. But ignoring structural change does not stop it. Power in the Middle East is shifting, and 2026 isn't hype, it's a convergence point. The moment when several long-running trends may become impossible to ignore. Watch the region carefully, because the biggest geopolitical shifts rarely look obvious while they are happening. They only become clear in hindsight. If you want deeper analysis like this before it becomes mainstream consensus, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, who do you think will shape the Middle East by 2026?